All right, welcome to the video. Now, this will be one of the most important videos you're likely going to see if you're trying to get out of your timeshare from the simple standpoint of it's going to reveal some information that most people, most so-called experts, are never going to tell you about how to get out, and hopefully it's going to wind up saving you a lot of money, a lot of time, and it's going to get you out of your maintenance fees very, very quickly and permanently. Okay, so you can get out, you can get free from those fees. Now, my name is Jason, for those who don't know, and we've shot a lot of these videos. The website is freefromvacationfees.com. So let's just jump right into it. Now, the reason, once again, and I'm on my notes page, and I'm assuming you're here because you want to get out of a timeshare, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about. So I'm on my notes page here. I'm screen capturing this, so bear with any voice sort of bumpiness in the volume or the voice, but I'm going to do the best I can here just to explain it to you so you can walk away from this video and have a good idea of what you're looking at if you want to get out, which is actually far simpler than what you might realize if you have the right information. So now there's generally two things that timeshare owners are going to do, and I'm assuming you've already thought about one of them, okay, or probably two of them, and actually really there's three things, so I should break it down. Okay, so the first thing you probably thought about is contacting your timeshare company. Okay, so whoever you might own with, maybe you own a Wyndham, maybe it's a Westgate, Diamond, Blue Green. You know, we could go on and on here. Maybe you go through RCI. It doesn't really matter. So I'm assuming in any event, and let me bold that since that is one of the main points here. I'm assuming that in any event, you have tried to contact your timeshare company and see if they'll take them over, and that's actually not a bad idea. However, a lot of the information you're going to see online is going to really hype this up, and I'm guessing that that didn't work. Okay, it's not as easy to do that as some people make it out to be. In my estimation, the vast majority of timeshare owners have gone about trying to contact their companies and see if they'll take the timeshare back, and I encourage you to do that. But it doesn't. It almost never works the way you think it does, or there ends up being more fees involved with that, and it turns out to be a long, drawn-out sort of pain in the ass, so to speak, because virtually everything dealing with timeshare, as I'm sure you know, with the maintenance fees and whatnot, is a pain in the ass. Okay, and nobody's ever going to convince me differently. So, but try that. That would be solution one. Okay, now, the second thing that people generally try to do is they're going to try to sell their timeshare, okay? And selling their timeshare is really just a form or a method of essentially having somebody else basically take over ownership. And what you're really doing there, now, a timeshare is really just ownership in open air. I mean, let's face it, you don't actually own a property. You own, so to speak, the right, or I should say, sort of the obligation to vacation. You own a time slot. It's basically open air is what you have in a timeshare. It's a time slot. It's open air. Nobody's going to convince me differently. And so you don't really own a physical property. All you're trying to do is pass that ownership, that open air. And what that really means when you have somebody take over ownership is that you're essentially trying to get them to take over your fees. All right, that's really what you're trying to do. It's probably why you haven't wanted to pass the timeshare on to your family. You don't want to sit them with your burden. And so you need to ask yourself, are there really people out there who want to take over my fees? And let me bold this here since that's the second one. And the answer is, yeah, there's some people out there. But the reason you should never, ever, ever pay to have somebody try to list your timeshare and sell that timeshare is because less than one, and let me put a percentage sign on there because that will look good, 1% actually resell. There, we got the spelling right on it. Okay, less than 1% of timeshares actually resell. Okay, and so actually to make this easy for you to see, let's skip over here. I'll bring up Safari. So let me show you something interesting here. Okay, so just to prove this point to you. Okay, so eBay. If I come to eBay.com, as of the making of this video, which is post 2019, but I suspect it won't change, actually is the #1 listing place for timeshares. And if you type in timeshares, that's just one thing you could type in. You'll see that you can come to eBay and you'll scroll down and there are thousands upon thousands of listings. And something interesting is if you look at these properties, we won't go into any depth here, but if I pull up one, they're very nice properties and you can come here and look. There's thousands upon thousands of them listed, and that's just on eBay. Across the internet, you have hundreds of thousands of timeshares listed for sale. And a lot of these people are trying to just get a starting bids of $1. They're essentially trying to give these things away. You can see they're nice properties. But again, you don't own that property. And so when let's say you have a really nice timeshare, which I'm assuming you do. Okay? I'm assuming you have a really nice timeshare. And so what people don't consider is that everybody else, virtually everybody else trying to get out of a timeshare also has a nice timeshare. But that's really beside the point because that's not really actually what you're selling. I can go to websites such as Expedia, and let me just pull that up real quick for you. I can go to websites such as Expedia.com, and there's Travelocity, and there's dozens of other ones, and I can book really, really cheap vacations, to nice destinations, tropical destinations, doesn't matter. This is just one website. Again, we can go to Travelocity, we can go anywhere, and that's the name of the game these days with the internet, is made traveling so cheap, and so I don't have to have a timeshare. 20, 30 years ago, it used to be a great thing. It allowed the family to vacation far cheaper, but now it's turned into nothing but a big, giant burden because I can actually travel cheaper by visiting these websites, and I can go to great destinations without being forced into a maintenance fee that has me stuck in one place every year, again, unless we're using RCI or something like that. But again, you're still paying a lot of fees with that. So this all comes back to, again, selling. That is the reason less than 1% actually resell. So many owners are trying to sell them, coupled with the fact that I can get even cheaper traveling these days just by visiting certain websites on the internet. So don't ever pay, long story short, don't ever pay to list your, and I want to take you through all this because hopefully it's going to really, really pay off for you. Don't ever pay to list your timeshare. And that fact alone, if you can get that, that can save you from getting scammed because there's a lot of timeshare listing scams. A lot of people we talk to here at Free from Vacation Fees have been scammed. by timeshare listing companies who've said, yeah, we'll sell your timeshare. And typically what they're going to charge is, I'll even write that out for you. Typically what they're going to charge you is somewhere around the lines of $1,500. You know, some people have even paid as much as $2,000, and that's just per every time they list. And you have some people doing this, plus 2 years before they discover that this isn't working. Whereas if they just watched a video like this, they'd know. Less than 1% of timeshares resell. Don't pay. If you want to try to sell it to recoup some of that initial investment, just go list it for free. But again, understand that it is virtually impossible to do so because there are hundreds of thousands of timeshares listed. Very nice properties. And really what you're dealing with is a very, very small, minute amount of the population who will actually take over your maintenance fees, will actually pay you to take over your maintenance fees. It just likely is not going to happen. So you might be asking yourself, okay, so where does this leave us? Well, it actually leaves you with a third option, and it's actually a very simple option, and it's what's known as a timeshare transfer. Okay, and let me bold that since that's one of the three options here. And again, I don't want to go too fast. I want you to get an idea of this so you really can walk away with this video with some good knowledge. So again, we talked about contacting your timeshare company, and the second solution is trying to sell. A lot of owners will try to sell their timeshare, and I talked about why you shouldn't pay to do that because less than 1% resell. Then there's a simple transfer. Okay, and this is probably one of the lesser known ways. It is becoming more popular, but one of the lesser known ways, simply because basically selling has just dominated most of the information, at least when it comes to solutions of how to get out of your timeshare. And so not a lot of people talk about timeshare transfer. A transfer is really basically doing the same thing of selling, except it's going about it a different way. It's going about transferring that ownership or getting somebody to or getting away from that ownership is a better way to put it. It goes about doing that in a different way. With selling, you're trying to get someone to take over your ownership and pay you. And let's face it, that isn't likely to happen. With timeshare transfer, you're simply using a transfer company to take over your ownership. And that's all you're trying to do. You're basically transferring ownership to the company. Okay, and let me unbold that there. Again, I want to try to keep this neat enough for you to see. You're basically transferring ownership of to the company. So basically, now generally speaking, there is an upfront fee to do this. But here's the thing: you have to take this in light of the fact that if you use a reputable transfer company, okay, they will guarantee that you get out. And so let's say you go to day you pay. Typically that, it depends on the timeshare ownership, but typically that can take anywhere from, can be really quick, anywhere from a month. But generally speaking, if you pay a timeshare transfer company a day, it's going to be somewhere in that 90-day range, generally speaking. And it could even go, just because it's so hard, people don't want to admit it, but it's so hard to basically transfer ownership out of your timeshare. So you give it to a transfer company, okay, and then they have to go about getting you out of the actual contract by transferring your ownership away. And that can generally take anywhere from 90 days. But let's face it, it can even take as long as a year to do it, okay? And so if you're dealing with a reputable transfer company, they're going to tell you this, okay? You're not going to make any money. This isn't selling. What you're going to do is pay the transfer company, and then they're going to go about getting your ownership, getting your ownership essentially away from away from your timeshare, so you can get out and end all fees. That's all it's doing. It's transferring ownership. It's just a different way of going about it as selling. Now, okay, as far as the upfront fee, and again, this is the solution we deal with here at Free from Vacation Fees. But as far as the upfront fee, it almost always winds up being far, far less than what you are paying in maintenance fees. And again, hopefully this volume is clear enough for you to see this, but it typically winds up being far, far less than maintenance fees. And some of this will depend on the timeshare company you own with, as far as the time it takes to actually transfer your ownership. And as far as the cost, generally, it depends on your timeshare company. Okay, and so that's information that will be important that you'll need to share with your transfer company. Okay, so, but again, when you pay that upfront fee, which ends up being far, far less typically than your maintenance fees, generally, basically, it's going to get you out. Now, I want to stress again, if you're using a reputable company, okay, it generally is going to get you out within that 90-day mark. That's probably the average. And some of the harder timeshare companies, some of the more ones that are more of a pain in the ass to deal with, that can take even longer because the transfer company has to deal with your timeshare company. And let's face it, that's not an easy process. It's far, far harder than what so-called timeshare experts are going to admit. Let's face it, the reason most people can't get out of their timeshare is because it's such a pain in the ass, and they don't even know about methods such as timeshare transfer. Okay, now, I want to go back to the selling real quick, and then we'll wrap this video up. The reason that selling almost always winds up being far more expensive than timeshare transfer, number one, is that people pay big listing fees, and those listing fees generally run a year, and then the timeshares don't sell. And then they try to relist, and so before they're done, they can have $3,000 to $5,000 just in listing fees. But then you have to factor in the maintenance fees. Okay, the maintenance fees also add up because you remain in that timeshare. Let's say it takes 2-3 years. You're also paying 2-3 years of maintenance fees. The reason that timeshare transfer ends up being cheaper is because when you pay that upfront fee, again, that generally winds up being, let me bold that there. That upfront fee generally winds up being far, far cheaper than what you're paying in maintenance fees, is because it gets you out. And that means you're not going to be stuck in any additional maintenance fees. You're not going to be stuck paying timeshare listing fees and things like that. It generally just gets you out. Okay, so you ain't going to make any money. You're not going to recoup any of your initial investment, but you're not going to do that. Most people are not going to do that anyways, even if they try to sell. Again, less than 1% resell. Okay, so hopefully that didn't get too complicated. I truly hope this video is beneficial. Again, it's important information, not intended as legal advice. I encourage you to do your research, but generally speaking, that's what you're going to get. So the 3 solutions that people like to use, again, are trying to contact your timeshare company, and sometimes that can work, but it's far more difficult and far less likely to work than what a lot of so-called experts are going to lead you to believe. Selling your timeshare, again, we talked about how less than 1% actually resell, but I encourage you, if you want to go that route, just don't pay a listing company. Just list it for free on a website like eBay, but you're going to find out that it's likely not going to work for you. And lastly, and the least talked about method, is a simple timeshare transfer. Again, that typically takes somewhere between 90 days, but it can take as long as a year. But here's the thing, okay? It's generally an upfront fee, a small upfront fee, and it gets you out. And that is guaranteed if you use a reputable company. And it's generally far, far less than what you're paying in maintenance fees. But do your research. Should you decide you'd like to get more information on transfer, it's what we do here at Free from Vacation Fees.com. So certainly you can visit our website and you'll see a form there. And if you'd like to contact us, feel free to contact us. We're not high-pitched salespeople, but we do deal with timeshare transfer. The solution is backed. But again, we do encourage you to do your research. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you found it useful, please like the video below. Just click that like, and all that's going to do is help other people find the video so that hopefully they'll get some better information on how to get out of their timeshare.